Woman Summit free virtual workshop series. My name is Sherica Hymes, and I am the founder of the Total Woman Summit and your host for this virtual workshop series. We are on day 2. Yesterday was fantastic and amazing. Pastor Diane Young and Pastor Felicia Wade truly blessed us as we discussed what is God in this pandemic. Wasn't it amazing? It was so good. It was so good. But today we're going to talk about mental health, and we are so fortunate to have with us internationally acclaimed certified speaker, author, she's everything, mentor, therapist, all of those things, Dr. Angela Anderson. Drum roll. And today we're going to be talking about I'm the strong friend and I am struggling. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Angela. How are you?
I am amazing, and I am so excited to have this conversation today because it has been coming up over the course of these weeks. And so I'm like, how timely is this? So thank you for even having this conversation and creating a platform for this discussion.
Absolutely. I'm happy to do it. And for those of you who are new to the Total Woman Summit, the Total Woman Summit was created to empower women through education, connection, and community. And this is a part of our education initiative because we truly want to get you the information that you need so you are informed so that you can make informed decisions. And we have those conversations with relatable subject matter experts like Dr. Angela Anderson. So let's get right into it. Dr. Angela, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
So as you mentioned, my name is Dr. Angela Anderson. Most people call me Dr. Angela, and I am internationally certified, as you said, as a speaker, coach, and trainer. Also the #1 international best-selling author of the book, Now What? Get Over Yourself and Move, and co-host of the podcast that you have on your shirt today. Thank you for wearing that, the Just Be Real Sis podcast. You've been our guest on one of the episodes. And so the basic premise of the podcast is just to create a space, much like you're doing, where women can have real conversations and add value to one another. So I'm just excited to be included in this process. And so thank you for posting it in the chat. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. And you guys will want to pay particular attention to your chat because as she drops nuggets of wisdom, you can take notes yourself or I will be dropping them in the chat. So that's the clicking that you'll hear. Well, we are in the midst of COVID-19, and as I described it in this workshop series, it really is AKA life interrupted. Life interrupted for us in a variety of ways. Yesterday, we talked about how it was interrupting our sort of belief system, our faith-based belief system, and how it was so jarring for those that have a well-established faith foundation and for those who were struggling to really even kind of create one in the midst of this pandemic. And so today we're exploring the impact that it's having on our mental health and what we can do about that for those who are trying to maintain their mental health and their sanity during this time, and also for those who have been so comfortable throughout the years being known to their circles as the strong friend, as we talk about so often, but how that needs to look different today in the midst of this pandemic. So, Dr. Angela, tell us about the strong friend sort of
the way of being, right? The life of the strong friend. So the strong friend is the person who gets called on when everybody needs to do a couple of things. They'll say, hey, I need to pick your brain, or hey, I need to run something by you. Hey, can I process this with you? I just need a few minutes of your time. Like if you've ever heard any of those phrases, or if you hear them consistently, you're probably the strong friend.
How many of you have heard that by raise of hands? You can raise your hand.
Yes. Yeah. So, after a while, that's great, that people trust your judgment. It's great that people feel like your opinion has value. That's awesome. But there's also this critical space where you have to create balance. So the first thing I did was I looked up the word strong, right? Because sometimes even in a struggle, people will call you, oh, but you're so strong. Like you are not human, or like you're not that you don't have normal emotions. You may be normally strong, but there are situations where you need to have that break as well, that grace as well, to operate in your humanness, if that makes sense. So
Mm-hmm.
the word strong is defined as having the power to move heavy weights or perform physically demanding tasks. That's one definition. The next definition said able to withstand great force or pressure. Now, we are all humans, right? And so we do have those moments where we're stronger than we are in other times. Specifically to now, though, since we're talking about COVID-19, normally strong people will serve from their reserve. They're able to create a space where they can take care of themselves, and then they will provide that outlet for people from their reserve. The thing about the situation we're in now is that that reserve is becoming depleted faster because you have more things on your plate than normal. You have decisions that you have to make. You're trying to come to terms with our new way of working, our new normal, right? And so that reserve may not be as plentiful. And so we have to pay attention to that. Also, strong means capable, solid, and secure, which is great, but that may be decreasing as we go through this experience. And so when I say people refer to you as a strong friend, you may very well be, but I really want to emphasize to women the importance of extending grace to yourself during this time and not allowing yourself to be forced into the box of being a strong friend.
What do you mean when you say that, Dr. Angela? What do you mean when you say, it's a couple of things I want you to give us a little bit of clarity on. When you talk about that you normally serve from your reserve, what does that mean?
So if you've been in the position where you've heard those questions that I ran the list down, you understand that people look to you for advice or they look to you for comfort. And so that becomes part of who you are, right? But you also understand that you have to have mental space, you have to have energy, you have to have all of these things for yourself. And so you understand that it's important that you take care of your needs as well so you can take part of your reserve and serve other people, not sacrificing one for the other. That's critical. So that's what I mean by the reserve. Yeah.
Okay, and then you talked about extending grace to yourself as the strong friend. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, because if there's one thing I want people to take away today is that, and I'm going to get to it in some of the tips, but there has to be a moment where you can say, this isn't the right time for this conversation. And you have to be okay with that, because there's something I shared with my sister years ago, and I said, a taker will never tell you to stop. A taker will do what they're designed to do, and that's take. And so, you know, you have to adjust. You have to acknowledge the situation for what it is, and you have to adjust to preserve what you need to survive yourself and to be mentally wealthy. So yeah, and I also talked about not being forced into the box of being the strong friend. And the reason why I say that is because if you hear that so many times that people say, oh, you're the strong one, but oh, you're so strong, you come to believe that that's all you are. And that any sign of showing vulnerability or any sort of emotion or weakness represents failure or you operating outside of who you actually are.
So let's talk a little bit about what you mean when you say don't be forced into the box of being a strong friend. Can you give us some examples of how that happened?
Yes. So I'll give you a personal example, as a matter of fact. You know how you go through something, there's certain things in life that any person that you talk to, they would say, oh, that's a stressor. I can remember being at a funeral for someone that was very close to me and having people call to check on my husband and say, well, how is he? And I would say, oh, because it was a loss of his relative. And of course, you're saying, oh, he's doing as well as to be expected. And the next sentence, they said, well, I know you're okay because you're the strong one. I was like, well, the person left my life too. It wasn't, I don't get to still see them. Like they left my life too. But the idea of that, right? And I called it to
Mhm.
their attention and I said, well, what do you mean by that? Do you think that I am the person who can withstand a loss any better than anyone else? And they immediately refocused that and said, oh, you know what? You're right. They thought it was a
Mhm.
compliment. But I'm like, you got to let people know when you're like, hey, I'm not the strong person right now. You got to be okay saying that.
Yes, let me tell you something. I used to really, let me tell you, as a strong friend, I'm the strong friend. And that goes for my family too, right? People love to tell me things. I am convinced that there is some sign, halo sign over my head that says, tell me all the stuff you want to talk about. And whenever you feel like telling me, I have attempted several times to take this sign off. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know, it doesn't matter what my face looks like, but apparently I have a face that says, please share, please
Yes.
share, please
Yes.
follow me and share. But what I had to do was I had to accept that, number one, I was getting some sort of validation out of being called a strong friend. And then
Mm-hmm.
on the days when I was really not able to show up like that, I forced myself out of um, being empty, out of my emptiness to show up, which was so inappropriate and so unhealthy for me to be doing that. And I cannot save others at the expense of myself. And I'm not responsible for saving others, period. I'm not responsible for saving others. So that's a whole sentence. So once I accepted that, then I was able to extend the grace to myself to say, it's okay if I don't want to answer the phone. I can still love you and not show up for you today because I'm too busy showing up for me today.
Mm-hmm.
Selfishness and self-care um, are sometimes inappropriately intertwined. Self-care is not selfish.
Not at all. Not at all. And
Mm-hmm.
like I tell people all the time, I said, decline can be your best friend.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
There are
And you
two,
know what?
well, the two buttons on your phone, so use both of them.
Say it again for the people. Say it again for the people in the back, Dr.
There are two buttons on your phone. Decline can be your best friend. I'm telling you, don't feel guilty about
Listen,
using it.
talk about it. We were talking to Pastor Diane Young yesterday, and I asked her how she cares for herself after caring for their church family and
Mhm.
all that. She was like, listen, a caller ID is a blessing. Some days I'm like, not today. So if the pastor is telling you that, and the therapist is telling you that, and your girl Sherica is telling you that, it's
Listen,
okay. 'Cause I can love you and ignore your call.
yes.
And I'm gonna tell you what I had to get really good at. I'll never forget Dr. Massey, who's my good friend and also my therapist. She said to me one day, she said, Sherica, you're responsible for telling people that you have feelings and that you have challenges too. They are not going to assume that because the way you show up in the world when you have challenges isn't the same way that perhaps maybe people would expect. You still produce, you still perform, you still execute at a high level, and you don't wear it on your face. So, for all intents and purposes, people assume that you're okay. And
Mm-hmm.
because there's this disconnect between what you're projecting and what's actually happening, you have to give voice to the fact that you're not okay.
Right. You got to get real. You have to get real
Mhm.
with what you are feeling. And like you said, like one of the tips that I wanted to give was the power of setting boundaries. And so I have a t-shirt and on the front of it, it says, no, thank you. And that's my way of starting a conversation about setting boundaries. Sometimes you just have to say no, thank you to negativity. You have to say, no, thank you. I can't receive that right now. I love you, but I can't take that on right now. I've got to have clarity around what I need to do in my own life at this time. So set boundaries without guilt, without guilt.
Mm.
That's critical because that's part of your self-care. That's part of your self-care. Like I had a
Mhm.
conversation this morning with a woman who's very accomplished. Still something that she battles with is setting boundaries. And I said, listen, go outside and look around. I guarantee you'll see a tree or two. I said, have you ever seen healthy branches and fruit and the trunk is rotten? And she said, no. I said, right.
Oh, yeah.
Because in order for the things that branch off from you to be healthy, in order for the fruit to be at its highest maximum capacity, that means that the roots in the trunk had to be taken care of first. I said, so every time you see a tree, I want you to think about, have I done something to take care of myself today? No, thank
That is
you.
all good. Listen, Dr. Angela gives the best analogy. I'm fortunate that she's also my friend and sister, but she gives the best analogies. I am not being biased. She really does. That whole tree branch fruit thing, that was from the Lord.
Listen,
So I want to give
listen.
people an example of the power of setting boundaries, because that's what we do here at the Total Woman Summit. Here's one of the ways, because I used to struggle with that, that I set boundaries. If it's a day that I've had an extremely difficult day, or I'm just not in the mood, I'm like, today is Sherica Day, which I have often. What I will say to you, if you call me with a problem, and I will say this even to my son, because I am a parent, he's an adult, it's appropriate, he's not a child. So I can say this to him. I say to anyone, I'll say, is this an emergency? And if they say no, then I say, today is not the day for me. Today, I don't have the capacity to take this on. I
Mhm.
can't, I don't have the emotional energy. But if you have to talk to someone, I can refer you to a professional.
You are quick to refer.
Yeah, she knows she's one of the people I refer to.
You are quick to refer. You're like, hey, I got a referral for you. I'm like, okay.
Listen, because I'm just big on not letting people, because I used to let people take advantage of our friendship and substitute going to therapy for our friendship, and then it stopped being enjoyable for me. So
Mhm.
can you talk a little bit about that for people who are the strong friend who used to have these really enjoyable relationships, but now these relationships are no longer enjoyable? Can you talk
Mhm.
about that?
Yes. So you and I actually had this conversation the other day on our live.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, I tell people, identify the people in your life that you can recharge with. Identify the people in your life who you can recharge with. Hopefully, that's your friend and your circle of friends. When that starts to get tainted, or there's this imbalance to that relationship, like the thing that I wanted to tell people to strive for is balance. Let me tell you how to find it is to keep or put something in a steady position so it does not fall. To keep or put something in a steady position so it does not fall. Friendship in your circle is about balance. It shouldn't just be about you holding up. You've seen people try to spin all the plates at the same time. That's what you look like when you're trying to be the strong friend for everybody. But who is serving you? So it has to be reciprocity in these relationships. It
Mm-hmm.
has to be
Mm-hmm.
an exchange. You can't be that person that when the phone rings, you're like, because you know what's coming. Like you should be able to have conversations that fulfill you as well. And when that balance is off, I think that's what you're referring to, that it
Mm-hmm.
becomes more of like a consultation and less like what you would get in a friendship. Friendship is
Mm-hmm.
balance. It's balance.
Friendship is balance. Thank you. That we need to say that again. Friendship is balance. And if it starts to feel like a consultation, then it's no longer rewarding for you. And so one of the things that I really live by is this, and I tell my clients this as well, is that people do not respect what you do not enforce. Your boundaries are not other people's responsibility. Your boundaries are yours to enforce, and then people will respect it. And it doesn't matter to me how many times they try to cross them, I continue to enforce them.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not going to wear me down and push my boundary out further. And so a lot of times that's what people are doing. Can you talk a little bit about, how to really enforce your boundaries?
Yes. So this is the thing. Once you make the decision that you're going to create boundaries for yourself and you're going to put things in practice to help solidify those boundaries, people are going to test you. Why? Because they've grown accustomed to the former version of who you are. And they will
Mm-hmm.
they will like say, oh, maybe she was having a bad day, or maybe she was just having a moment. I'll give it a day or two and then I'll come back and I'll have a conversation again. So the thing that's critical is that you have to be consistent, like you're talking about. You have to be consistent. Make sure that there's clarity around your boundaries, right? Because we're not trying to offend or make anybody, upset or anything like that. You want to be available to your friends, but balance, boundaries, and consistency. And after a while, once people understand that she means what she's saying, they will adjust. But that first period of setting the boundaries, they're gonna test them.
They're going to test them and they're going to struggle and they may make you feel bad. Can you talk a little bit about that first sort of level setting for people? Newness is the change is different for people,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Change is different for people. And so can you talk a little bit about that resistance and how people can work through that as they're shifting and applying these principles to their life?
So I would say ask a few questions of the people. First of all, the people who really, really, really are cheering for you, they want you to do what needs to happen to operate as the best version of yourself, even if it means setting boundaries for them. So I would ask the question, hey, are we friends? No, are we really? Are we really friends? Okay. Do you want me to win? Do you want me to succeed? Okay, well, are we being able to do that? I set boundaries in my life. I need you to be okay with that. So I need you to come with me through this change. Now, your friends, they're going to understand that. They're going to cheer you on. They're going to support you. They're going to pray for you through that change. And we're going to be okay because we communicated about it. If there are people who can't handle it, it's probably the people who benefited from you not having boundaries in the first place.
Oh, and you got to be okay with the fact that that relationship may be over. And can you talk about what kind of responses should people give when people love you for real and they really want you to win and they want you to be healthy and whole? Then they'll be fine. But it's the ones that really have an issue and have just been benefiting from you. Their response will be different. How can you? What advice would you give them if they get that awkward response because someone is unhappy with the change?
No, thank you. No, thank you. Like, listen, no, thank you. Because this is the thing. You can bring things to people's attention. They may receive it and they may not. You want people to be able to understand, but you can learn a lot about the dynamics in a relationship when things change. And so maybe there was something that you were supposed to learn or know about the dynamic of that relationship, and that's why the change is happening. People may not be okay with it. You had that conversation, you know it's coming from a genuine place, you weren't rude about it, your soul posture was fine, you delivered it in love. And so the people who are supposed to be there, they will be there. They will be there.
Mm-hmm.
The other night we were talking about, here's another analogy for you. We were talking about, sometimes at certain levels, there'll be people in your life that fall off, right? And so we were talking about watching a rocket launch. And so when you see a rocket launch, there, rocket boosters on the side of the rocket, and at a certain level, they fall off. Well, they serve their purpose to a certain level, and then it's time for them to fall off so you can reach your maximum heights. And so that's part of the process. There are going to be people who are with you up until a certain level. They may not be able to handle that level of the atmosphere, and they will fall off. And that's okay.
It's okay if people fall off your rocket. It's okay. So we have some really good questions, and I want you to know that your husband's in the room. So you can say hello.
At the Total Woman Summit, yes.
It's okay. He is fine in here. You are welcome to be here, Dr. Otis, and we are so incredibly grateful for the way you're sharing your gifts with the world. We love the Andersons. So we have some questions, and you guys are welcome to ask questions. How many of you are really enjoying this so far? Yes, that's so awesome. Raise your hand if you're enjoying it. So here is a question for you. How do you say no to your parents not feeling guilty and caring for them? I need to separate and live with abundance.
How do you set boundaries with your parents?
Yes.
This can be a tough one because, can I be honest with you for a minute?
Yeah.
My mother has called me since I've been on this call with y'all, right? Now, I've communicated with her. I let her know what was happening today. And if I'd answered the phone, guess what she'd have said? Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot. When I get off, I'll call her and say, hey, you remember that whole webinar I had to do today? Yeah, that's when you called me. So I think just like with anybody else, we have to communicate with them, right? We may have to do a little over communicating because We see things differently. Our lens is different. Our level of understanding, the way we understand things is different. And so we
Mm-hmm.
have to try to just communicate with them as lovingly as we can. But the same rules apply. You still have to be able
Mm-hmm.
to create boundaries as well, with our
Mm-hmm.
parents. And just like anybody else, they're going to test them probably more than anybody else because
Is
they
that
are,
going to test them? Mm-hmm.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
because
Yep.
they're your parents.
They can. And they had you, and like to remind you that they had you. I love you, mommy.
Yes. Love you too, Mama. I'll call you after this.
These mamas call you during these conferences. My mama called yesterday during one of the workshops, and she called back to back, and she was calling me to tell me that I had mistyped something, and I was like, Mama, why were you knew I was on the she was like, I was like, you could have chatted. She was like, I don't know anything about this chat, but I know how to call you. I had to ignore the call, people. It's just, but I mean, we're laughing about it, but in
Yes.
full transparency, I had to set some new boundaries in my family, and one of the ways that I did that is because I showed up as the rescuer. And again, I want to make sure that you understand when you identify something that's happening, the
Mm-hmm.
first response is to acknowledge it, and the second one is to own it, own your part in it. Because, as I said earlier, people do not respect what you do not enforce, and your boundaries are your responsibility. But I also had to acknowledge early on that I was getting some sort of validation from being the strong friend and for being the solver and always having the
Mm-hmm.
answer. So I had to resolve what was happening and why that was so rewarding for me. And
Mm-hmm.
I was willing to sacrifice myself by giving out of my emptiness to continue to live up to that. So
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that I had to do when I was getting ready to change really show up differently and better in a more healthy way was to say, I'm not going to be able to rescue anymore. I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah.
And our rescuing actually isn't helping because we keep having the same problem over and over again. So I'm an enabler. So how many of you have
Mm.
actually been being the enabler, allowing people not to really, so many hands have gone up, not to deal with their issues? And can you talk about being the strong friend versus being an enabler and how people
Yes.
really get those things sort of really sort of misconstrued?
Yes. So that is so good, first of all, that you brought that up. The thing is, there is a certain amount of validation and feeling of helping that you get sometimes for being available to people. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. That's part of serving. I think where the problem comes in is where it becomes so unbalanced that that's all you're doing and you're not reserving anything for yourself. Remember, it's back to balance. And the
Mm-hmm.
thing is this, I want everybody around me to win, like most strong friends. The only difference is I can't carry you on my back.
Say it again for the people in the back.
I can't carry you on my back. Like I want you to win. I want you to take this journey to success, but I can't carry you on my back. And the thing is, it gets to the point to where the heaviness feels like it's normal. The heaviness becomes more normal than the balance.
Wait. We got to stop right there. We got to talk about it. Pause. Every now and again, you just got to pause because you can't gloss over something. What do you mean when you say when the heaviness seems more normal than the balance?
See, this is the thing. You know how easy it is to create a habit. Look how quickly we have adjusted to being in our homes and not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Immediately we had to adjust. And so now our normal is to be in our homes and not to go like we were normally going. Well, that's for our safety at this point. Well, sometimes those types of habits develop in our relationships as well. You are not a receptacle. You are not a
Mm-hmm.
receptacle. It isn't your job to just receive whatever somebody wants to come and deposit with you. Because you got to think about this. When people bring
Mm-hmm.
their issues to you, they're not just bringing them and taking them back when they leave. They're leaving some things. And so the more
Mm-hmm.
people that come and leave things, you're stacking that collection of other people's things on you.
Mm-hmm.
So much so that heaviness becomes a part of you. Like you're walking around carrying things you don't even realize. That's why we see people with this tension in their neck and in their shoulders. That's why those headaches come. That's why you can't sleep. That's why you know, may be worried or experiencing anxiety because you're carrying your stuff and everybody else's as well. And so this is the thing. Sometimes we don't realize how heavy the load is until we put it down.
Mm. And you know what? Let me tell you something, because I like to give examples. I'm full on transparent, and that's why the summit is different, because we tell the truth. We really want you to be empowered. So one of the things that I realized about myself, so I was really, really sick from about 2003 to 2007. I had 5 major surgeries in 4 years, and each surgery took 6 months to recover. I had to get real to myself about, I was having tumors grow at a rapid rate. In the last surgery, they really weren't sure that I was going to live. They removed 32 tumors. But let me tell you, that is what unresolved issues, unresolved emotional hurt, not pursuing wholeness, that's what it does. You may not see it internally, but it is taking its toll on your body. All the years of not dealing with the fact that I have been raped, all the years of not dealing with the fact that there was some unresolved pain from that and some other life things that had happened, but I was just constantly just putting accomplishment on it and taking on other people's stuff as well. And if I wanted to live, I had to make a decision that the heaviness could not continue to be my new normal. I mean, it could not be my normal. I had to strive for balance, and that started with me doing self-work. So if you all are experiencing any issues that are showing up, just go ahead and deal with it. The heaviness cannot be more normal than the balance. That was a whole word right there. So how many of you actually have found yourself in a position by show of hands where the heaviness was more normal than the balance? But when I got free, let me tell you something. When I got free and got delivered, can I stand up? First of all, if I stand up, y'all gonna see my and they're gonna be right. Listen, okay. So let's see. So somebody has a question, and they said, can you share some resources that can help the strong ones of us to refuel because I'm so exhausted? Yes. And I'll share after Dr. Angela shares.
Okay, so I think one thing that you and I benefit from, Sherica, is having what we call a power circle. So I would encourage women to develop or seek out women who can understand what it is that you're feeling, because none of us show up just prepared to deal with all of what comes our way. We have the blessing and the privilege of having other people in our lives. Maybe we're related to them. Maybe we had to seek them out, but creating this space around you where people can pour into you as well. Like that is an invaluable resource that I have where I can pick up the phone.
Hold on. Creating a space where people can pour into you, right?
Yes. And allowing them to do so, right? This is a difficulty that we face as the strong friend. Because, like I said, being put in the box of being the strong friend, it's sometimes even hard for us to accept when people are pouring into us because we have grown so unaccustomed to being cared for that we actually feel guilty or strange when people try to do it. That's been a lesson that I've had to learn because I was always the fixer. Like I can remember that from a lot of my life. And so now I had to wake up and say, I may be able to help you facilitate something, but I can't fix it.
You know what? Okay, so let's have a real example moment. So Dr. Angela just said she was the fixer. I, too, am the fixer. And really, that's probably a real characteristic of being a strong friend. You are very resourceful. You have the unique ability to give really great advice, or you have a lot of wisdom or strategy. So people do rely on you. That's why you need those boundaries and to enforce them. But let me give you an example of what power circle looks like and how I actually resolve that myself and how we actually do this in a lot of we share some similar circles and connectivity. Well, my mom was in the hospital last year, and she was actually on her deathbed. Praise God, she's doing well. That's why she could call me 3 times yesterday when she shouldn't have been calling me, but my mama should do what she wants. And but Dr. Angela Anderson and her good friend and sister, Candace Morgan, were doing their Just Be Real Sis podcast launch. I'm repping for them today. And I was on their program while my mom was around the block in the hospital. I was on their program to do something for their launch. And of course, they gave me all kinds of grace because that's what sisters and real friends do, to not show up. But it really was a relief for me. Well, I got there, and 3 people in my power circle, Dr. Angela Anderson, Candace Morgan were there, and Dr. LaShonda Massey, who you guys hear from tonight. But I was so overwhelmed, and I didn't even realize how overwhelmed I was until it was over, and I was just congratulating them. And in the midst of one of those hugs, because I knew it was a safe space, and it was my power circle in the middle of Dr. Angela Anderson, Dr. Candace Morgan, and Candace Morgan. Candace, I'd have made you a whole doctor, because I know she's listening. Candace Morgan and Dr. LaShonda Massey. I broke down when I tell you I did the ugly boo-hoo cry because I needed to release that. But the only reason I was able to do it is because I have a circle that allows me to do that and show up as my authentic self in this safe space. And secondly, because I know that's my body knew that it was a place that I could go ahead and release all of that emotion. And they hugged me, prayed over me, but allowed me to get that out. And then I was able to leave and go back around the block to the hospital and be there for my mom and show up for my family. So your power circles really, and your friend circles should create that sort of environment for you. So that's one tip. Two tips. Get a power circle and create, and then allow people to pour into you. How do you do that? If you don't know, Dr. Angela, you mentioned that we have to allow people to pour into us. And that's difficult for people who are always used to giving. Can you give us some examples of how they can do that?
I can give you a recent one that seems like a simple one, but it meant so much to me. So another friend of mine who's super sweet, her husband is from Louisiana, okay? Mm-hmm. And I went to college in Louisiana, so I'm all down for a crawfish boil whenever you want to have it, right? But of course, we can't do that right now. And so she calls me and she said, hey, we're going to be ordering, crawfish, and we're going to do the potatoes, the whole thing. How much would you want? How much do you want? And I was like, really? And so she says, yes. So I tell them, like, I'm down, but I'm prepared to, because this is what we do. We don't let people just do for us. I'm like, well, tell me how much it is. I'll cash app you whatever you paid for it, and that'll be awesome. Let me know when I can come pick it up. But that's not what she wanted to do. Not only did they get the food, prepare the food, package the food, she safely, and with social distancing, brought it to me and my girls. And I just thought that was the most giving thing. And she's like, I know we would normally, get together and do this, but this was my way of giving. And I had to stop and think, right? Because we want to be a blessing to other people, but we have to at the same time not block the opportunity for other people to be a blessing to us. And for her, that was her way of being a blessing to me and my family. And I had to allow her to operate in that space. And so
you allow her to operate in that space, and we have to stop blocking blessings for other people because they want to be a blessing for us. Me, huge problem for me too. That's something I struggle with, but I first of all acknowledge that it's an issue for me, and I also am allowing my friends to hold me accountable. True story, this happened Sunday. So, because I'm a giver, it's really my heart. Dr. Angela, people can tell you, if you know me, I love to give.
You're a good giver too. You are an excellent giver. I just want to say that on record.
I am really a good giver. I love to give. It makes me so happy to give people stuff. It's like, oh, they're going to be so happy. But so Sunday, Candace prepared dinner for her children, and she prepared dinner for me too, and boxed it up and with safe social distancing, gave it to me. And I tried to send her a cash app. This is a true story. This happened Sunday. I tried to send her a cash app for just some coffee. And do you know what? And I was just like, coffee on me, thank you so much. I appreciate it. She
Mhm.
said back, she was like, your money's no good here. But again, that's just another way because I'm so used to giving. But in that point, I knew she doesn't mind. She doesn't mind giving to me and we give to each other. But I wanted to do that. She wouldn't even let me do that because I would have been robbing her of being a blessing to me. And true story, like I did it to her a couple of months ago. She
Yeah.
tried to pay me for something and I sent the money back.
Listen, I learned the most amazing lesson in a conversation yesterday, and I'm going to share it here. We have this habit of trying to discount God's abundance for us. And that's exactly
Ooh,
what
that's
that
really
is.
good.
That's exactly
Say it
what that
again.
is.
Say it again.
We have a habit of trying to discount God's abundance. This is the thing. If we allow people to just operate fully in the blessings, right? And to be a blessing, but also receive blessings, all it is, it's not even about us. It's evidence of the abundance around us. And people need to see that in its fullness. You would never be
Mm-hmm.
able to tell that story. I would never be able to tell that story of my friend giving to me if I had not just allowed it to happen. And so my lens in that space is totally different now. Because as much as I
Mm-hmm.
want people, like we get so excited when we get a gift and we put a lot of thought into it, then guess what? You also deserve to receive that. So don't discount the
Yeah.
abundance that's coming back your way.
That's good. That's good. So for the person who asked that question, I want to make sure that you get those tips, and for the rest of you. So number one, you need to make sure that you have a power circle. Then
Yes.
you need to make sure that you communicate that you need something and allow people to give that to you. So you have to articulate the fact that you need something. Then you have to stop blocking the blessing and allow people to be a blessing for you because we have a habit of trying to discount God's abundance for us. And I know the person that asked that question, and she suffers from the same afflictions that we did as the strong friend. So that's how you get relief. I'd also like to share too, if you don't mind, Dr. Angela. So one of the things that we also do is I have a weekly prayer with girls, and it's on Sunday with some of my closest friends. It's an intimate circle, but we're all the strong friends in our family and in our circles. But it's a time for us to be together and we laugh and we play, but pray. I mean, we laugh and we play. We do play. And then we give each other our prayer requests, our praise reports, and then we pray over one another. We rotate through praying, and we hold each other accountable, but we celebrate each other. We also do some masterminding together. Anybody's working on the project, we help each other with the masterminding. But that's how we get fed from one another. And we look forward to that time together. And if we realize that we need to do it more than once a week, we'll do a midweek session. But so that's some of what we do so as well. And so hopefully that helps you with that about how you can do that. So we have two questions. I want to make sure that we ask them. How do you break away from relationships with longevity when you realize that you're always the friend who's calling the other, and also always having to put everything together when ideas are shared, only to be considered controlling when you do? So we have the issue of how do you break away from a relationship that you're now realizing doesn't have that balance, and it's a long-term relationship. And then how do you, well, I think you're gonna also answer this. Always having to put everything together when ideas are shared.
So the first question I would ask is it a long-term relationship because you wouldn't let it go early enough?
Ooh, wait, I got to type it. I got to. Okay.
Because a lot of times we just continue to let time pass in a situation that doesn't serve us, and that's not selfish. And so time is relative. Just because you've been around a person for a long time doesn't necessarily mean that that's how long you should have been around that person. So it comes down to checks and balances, the pros and cons. Are you serving the way you need to serve? But more importantly, are you receiving something in that? If you're the person that always puts things together, you're the one who is the glue of the group. My first question would be, have you identified and told the group that that's how you feel? Have you told them that, hey, I'd like somebody else to play in something sometimes. I want to be surprised. I want to have, the feeling of, oh, you put this together. Like, I want to feel like something has been done for me. So that's the first question. If you haven't said that and you're just sitting on those feelings, then one, you got to address them and you got to lovingly express that that's how you feel. And then second, stop. Because every time you put an event together, it's because you did it. And so sometimes you got to give yourself a little distance and see how people respond. Why would they plan something? They can't, because you always do it.
That you always do it. So you got to give other people the opportunity to show up. And you keep hearing us say that you have to say it, but say it lovingly and respectfully. But the truth is, we walk around and we think that just because, especially if you're someone that embodies a high level of self-awareness and emotional intelligence, because it's something that Dr. Massey had to help me identify, is I do have high self-awareness and high emotional intelligence. So as a result, I can really intuitively know a lot of things that are happening. And discernment, quite frankly, is one of my strongest spiritual gifts. But guess what? Doesn't mean everybody is operating in that. So I had to use my voice, use your words, as we tell toddlers, use your words, and I had to express to people. So if you have to start telling people, give people a chance, and give yourself a chance to be wrong. Maybe you're making this assumption, and other people want to do that, and we're just not giving them an opportunity to do it. And sometimes when you're really great at doing it, some people feel intimidated because they're like, they won't be able to pull it together as excellently as you can. So create some opportunities. You may be wrong. They may want to, and if you have to, let it go. And so those are some answers.
This is the thing. I would add this too. Your reality is not always real. Your reality is not always real. It seems real to you because that's inside you. It's your lens. It's the way you see the situation. But a simple conversation may show you that your reality may not be real. And so talking, say how you feel. Like, don't put on this costume of, oh, I'm always the one. You know, you probably are, but take it off.
Take it off. You can take it off. It's not a straitjacket. Take it off.
You can take it off. You can straight take it off. Listen, you can take that off. Like, you say, hey, I would like for us to do this. Delegate.
Delegate. Say it again. I'm just echoing everything. What is wrong with
you? Listen, I'm telling you. The thing is, you're responsible. Nobody can read your mind. Nobody may even know that that's a heaviness that you're carrying. Once again, like I said, sometimes you don't realize how heavy something is until you put it down. And so just have that conversation with your friends and let them know how you feel.
Absolutely. So this is your final opportunity. If you have questions, to go ahead and drop them in the Q&A. Here's another question, Dr. Angela. How, as the strong friend, do you not feel the need to immediately return the pour?
Return the
pour when someone has poured into you?
Oh, that's a choice too. That goes back to the blessing conversation, right? It's not transactional. Friendship should not feel like a transaction. It's almost like, like the thing I told you with the food. Like my immediate.
Wait. That was powerful. Hold on one second. Hold on. I'm not going to let you do it. What did you say? Friendship should not feel like a what?
It's not transactional. It isn't, oh, you did something for me, so I have to do something for you. And your friends. And when I say friends, I'm not talking about the people that you just give that label to. I'm talking about the people who have proven themselves to earn that title. They're not going to make you feel like you owe them something because they showed up for you. Of course, as friendships go, the opportunity will come for you to pour into that person, but you shouldn't carry around this feeling that it has to be quid pro quo. Like, I got to give you something right now because you did something for me. That doesn't feel like somebody pouring into you. That's a transaction. That's not what we're talking about. So allow yourself to receive and to sit in and reflect on the blessing. Let me tell you something. That food that she brought over here was everything. Everything. And I was so thankful. And so I'm like, I would have missed the opportunity to enjoy that blessing had I been so consumed with, okay, well, what do I need to do next for her? And as a strong friend, I'm sure at some point you've made some deposits in that person's life as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let people bless you. Let me tell you that good steak and potatoes and cucumber and tomato salad with vinegar that Candace made, and she brought me a whole gallon of water because I said I needed this hydration. That was just her being petty and over the top.
Hydration.
It was such a blessing to me that she did that for me, and and I'm so grateful because I allowed her to pour into me. And when I tried to make that a transaction by buying her coffee, she stopped me as my friend, and I let her stop me because we hold each other accountable. And so that's what friendship is. Did you have any more tips? Because I don't want to rob these people of any tips that you want to give to them.
So let me just, because I know we're like coming up on time. First of all, this has been so fun. Like I've had fun with everybody in here.
You guys enjoyed this? Has it been
Listen, I'm having the ball. So this is the thing that I would like to leave with you. And I've shared this advice with my friends many times. I know that you're the strong friend. I have friends who actually have capes that they have earned as a reward.
Yeah.
But sometimes I need you to take the cape off and put it in the cleaners. You are not meant to show up as a superhero in every situation. That's not your job. And sometimes we hold ourselves to the unrealistic expectation that we're supposed to swoop in and save the day. Sometimes, maybe, but not all the time. So give yourself permission. I'm giving you permission to take the tape off and put it in the cleaner sometimes.
Yes, so good, so good, so good. So now tell the people about all the exciting projects and things that you have. I just shared with them where they could find your podcast, Just Be Real Sis, on all podcast platforms. You guys should subscribe today and tell a friend. And you can learn more about that at justberealsis.com, with which I just put in the chat. What else? What other projects do you have?
Thank you for that, because that's also something we have these conversations all the time on the podcast. So we would love for you guys to listen. Let us know what you think. Give us feedback and share with a friend. Each night I go live on Instagram, and you were there, one of them, the other night. So my Instagram is at Dr. Angela Speaks, and every night at 9 o'clock I go on just to create a space for people to have positive energy and share ideas, and we pour into one another, and it's great. So you can follow me there. Also on Instagram, there is a link there, because I know a lot of people have the physical copy of the book, but I have repurposed and repackaged it. It's now available as a digital download, in addition to a video that I've done with some tips that are relevant to what we're talking about today, and a worksheet to help guide you through the book. So there is a Now What bundle available at this point, and the link is available on my bio on Instagram. So Dr. Angela Anderson is my page on Facebook. You can follow there. And of course, the podcast is our first love, our passion. So please join us there. So yeah, lots of ways you can support right now.
That's so awesome. And you also have a website. Where would people go to your website?
Yes. So the website is www.drangelaspeaks.com. And from that link, you can also book consultations now. So I've had, especially now with everything that's going on with the pandemic, you can book sessions there, coaching sessions there as well, under that same link that I gave you for Instagram.
Awesome. And then you and Dr. Otis, her husband's also a physician. He's a psychiatrist. You and Dr. Otis also have some projects. You guys have anything interesting that you'd like to share that you have coming down the pipeline? Yes.
So he is actually doing a webinar tonight with his colleagues. He's written a book called Mind Matters. Matter of fact, look, see, not too far. This is it. And it is a resource guide of psychiatry for the Black community. They're doing a free webinar tonight. So I'll send you that information so you can send it out on the page. But it is
at Amazon. His book is at Amazon.
Yeah, it's available at Amazon too. And it's an opportunity. There'll be two, one tomorrow and one tonight and one tomorrow, to just discuss how we're doing during this time from a mental health and mental wealth standpoint. So, and then when we are in the same place, we do a Facebook Live together where we just pick a topic and offer our opinions and or expertise on issues that are relevant to our community. So that's something else you can put there.
So you can put this,
Yes.
Let's see, and you can learn
So that's the
more
website.
about, hold on.
So he put the website in the chat. You can register for the webinar there.
You can put it in the, if I misspelled this, Dr. Otis, tell me. I tried to just copy and paste what you just did.
Yeah,
but,
that's it.
You got to learn more. We are all about resources and supporting our friends at this Total Woman Summit. That's how we live. We collaborate with integrity here. And so this has been such an amazing conversation. We could continue to talk for hours. Trust us, we know, because we do it. But as we get ready to close, we hope that you have been truly inspired and that you have a little bit more structure around how to show up as a strong friend and how to stop struggling, if that was your truth coming into this conversation. If you have any more questions or you feel like you need more time to discuss this in a one-on-one setting, feel free to book you a coaching session with Dr. Angela Anderson at drangela.com, or you can follow her on Instagram or Facebook at Dr. Angela Speak. And just get those resources, some really good things that'll help you get this balance. And don't forget to create yourself a power circle and to create yourself a safe space and allow people to show up for you, because your friendships should not be transactional. They should be mutual and they should be reciprocal. And I just want to say, as the host, thank you all so much for joining us today on the afternoon session of this virtual workshop series with Dr. Angela Anderson. I'm the strong friend and I'm struggling. If you have not done so already, you should be registered for so many other sessions. We have 11 days, 26 speakers, and 22 sessions. So be sure to join us for our next episode tonight at 7:30 p.m. with Dr. LaShonda Massey, licensed clinical psychologist. We're going to be talking about maintaining your sanity and managing your mental illness during this crisis. So that's very important. And you need to listen for yourself if you need to maintain your sanity and if you're managing your mental illness, or if you have someone that's struggling with mental illness, and how you can show up for them, because so much of that is happening right now. So we want to come out of this healthy and whole. And if you haven't followed me on social media, please do so at Sherica Hymes. You can do that on Instagram and Facebook, and follow at Total Woman Summit, the same on Facebook and Instagram. These playbacks will be made available, but only to our Summit Inner Circle. So get signed up at TotalWomanSummit.com. Thank you all so much. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. It's been a joy. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.